The key clicked. After 10 years, their restaurant was mine. Across the street, the old Moretti's sign sagged. Cracked paint, dead windows. The empire that mocked me out of the family was rotting where it stood. I stepped inside. No chandeliers. No wine racks. Just bare floors and breathless potential. Outside, a man climbed down from the ladder, leaving behind a fresh nameplate. Verdura, by Clara Moretti. The name they tried to strip from me now gleamed in steel. I could still hear my father's voice like a curse burned into the walls. "This place is in your blood, Clara, but you're not ready." They said I'd fail. I bought their failure instead. This isn't revenge, it's reclamation. This building raised me, but it also erased me. And now, I'm rewriting every recipe they refused to taste. Welcome to Verdura. Let's begin. I was born into marinara and meatballs. The Moretti name meant something in Southern California. 3 generations of old-school Italian cooking. Starched tablecloths, waiters in vests. Veal ossobuco so tender it made grown men cry. Our family restaurant didn't just serve food, it served pride, reputation, legacy, and I was supposed to inherit that. The youngest of 4, I was the quiet one. While my brothers learned to roll fresh pasta and shout orders across the kitchen, I read cookbooks under the prep table. I loved food, but not like them. I didn't want to replicate Nono's recipes. I wanted to reinvent them. So when I announced I was going to culinary school instead of apprenticing in our kitchen, my father laughed in my face. "You want to pay to learn what you could get in the back kitchen for free?" But the real war started the year I went vegetarian. I came home, one Sunday with a pan of vegan lasagna, cashew ricotta, house-made noodles, roasted vegetables layered just right. I set it on the table, proud, excited. It sat there untouched like a disease. My mother wouldn't make eye contact. My sister-in-law moved the salad bowl closer like it might be safer. And then Marco, my oldest brother, leaned back in his chair and smirked. "You want to cook rabbit food," he said, loud enough to hush the table. "Do it on your own dime." Everyone laughed, even my dad, the same man who once said the kitchen was sacred. That moment, it carved something into me. I realized they didn't see me as a chef. Not even as family, really. Just the quirky little sister who couldn't commit to the family business and couldn't even commit to meat. I left that night and didn't come back. They called it a phase, a tantrum. My mother said I'd grow out of the tofu thing. My dad called me a traitor to the bloodline. "What's next, almond meatballs?" he scoffed. Like plant-based food was a personal insult to the family. But I wasn't chasing a trend. I was chasing something they never understood. Food that could heal people, not just impress them. They had tradition. I had vision. And while they were mocking my kale phase, I was already writing recipes that would one day put theirs out of business. They just didn't know it yet. The last time I stepped foot in Moretti's kitchen, it ended with a plate shattered against the tile and my father screaming, "If you won't honor the name, you don't get the name." It started because I said no, again, to joining the family business full-time. I'd just graduated culinary school and pitched the idea of introducing a plant-based menu alongside the traditional fare. Something modern, something for younger diners. He stared at me like I'd spit in the marinara. "We don't serve weeds in this kitchen," he barked. "You want to destroy what your grandfather built? You want to kill this place with almond cheese?" When I stood my ground, he did exactly what I knew he would. Cut me off. "No job, no family support. Let's see how long your kale empire lasts on your own." So I did the only thing I could. I went on Craigslist and bought a rusty, grease-stained, old truck for $3,500. It barely started. The paint peeled if you looked at it wrong. But I parked it near the Venice boardwalk, gave it a deep scrub, and slapped on a hand-painted sign. Verdura, plant-based Italian. No one from my family showed up on opening day. Not my mother. Not even my cousin Gina, who used to sneak my cashew mac and cheese when no one was watching. But Marco did. He pulled up in his slick SUV, stepped out in his tailored blazer, and started taking pictures on his phone. Seriously? He laughed, snapping shots from every humiliating angle. This is it? This is where the Moretti bloodline ends, with overpriced tofu on wheels? I kept my back to him, stirred my lentil bolognese, focused on the one customer reading the chalkboard menu like it mattered. Marco leaned closer. Dad was right. You're a joke. Then he drove off, tires squealing like punctuation. I didn't cry. Not that day. I just gripped the edge of the hot plate and reminded myself that I'd rather be a joke with a dream than royalty in a crumbling empire. That night, I served 6 customers. Day 2, 10. By the end of the week, a local vegan blogger posted a rave about my jackfruit parm. I printed it out, taped it to the inside of the truck, right next to the inspection permit and my culinary diploma. The Moretti name might have been stripped from me, but Verdura, that was mine. And it was just getting started. The first year nearly broke me. The truck overheated twice in 1 week. I burned an entire batch of eggplant meatballs during a freak power outage. I once cried in a grocery store parking lot because I couldn't afford bulk cashews. Some nights, I sold nothing. Just stood there watching beach tourists walk past without a glance. But I kept showing up. I tweaked recipes, shifted locations, passed out samples to anyone who'd take one. Little by little, things changed. A yoga instructor started bringing her whole class after sunrise sessions. A vegan bodybuilder posted my beet ravioli on Instagram. Then a tech startup bro ordered my mushroom marsala and offered to cater his investor brunch. I said yes. By year 3, Verdura had 2 trucks, then 3. Still no press releases, no bragging. I stayed under the radar, especially when I parked 2 blocks from Moretti's. Meanwhile, their tables sat emptier each month. I'd peek through their windows sometimes. Same white tablecloths, same veal-heavy menu, same dusty specials board from 1998. My siblings blamed inflation. My father blamed avocado toast and oat milk lattes. Blamed me. Once, I passed by and saw a sign taped to their window. Temporarily closed. Plumbing issues. But it wasn't plumbing. 2 nights later, I watched the 6 o'clock news as the local health inspector gave Moretti's a C grade. Expired. Meat. Dirty fryers. Black mold under the prep sink. I didn't cheer. I opened my email, saw the PDF I'd been waiting for. Verdura franchising license. Approved. 2 documents. 1 old world collapsing. 1 new vision expanding. I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at both screens side by side. And I realized something. I never needed their approval. I'd outgrown it, outcooked it, outlasted it. They stayed still. I evolved. They clung to the way it's always been. I built something they didn't even have the language to describe. Later that month, a local magazine ran a feature. 10 women changing the face of California cuisine. I was on the cover. No Moretti's in sight. And yet, I still hadn't told them. Not about the awards. Not the 3 trucks. Not the early talks with investors. Not even that Verdura had quietly bought out 2 locations their suppliers used to depend on. I didn't need to say anything. Success speaks louder when it's silent. And I had a feeling. It was about to start screaming. It finally happened. After 3 years of shaky Yelp reviews, slipping foot traffic, and failed attempts to modernize by offering gluten-free pasta no one asked for, Moretti's Ristorante closed its doors. Debt. Health code violations. A doomed attempt to open a second location in Palm Springs that never made it past the soft launch. The expansion drained what little they had left. The final blow? Their landlord listed the original building for foreclosure. What they didn't know was that the buyer, on paper, was Lenticia Group LLC. And what they really didn't know? I am Lenticia Group. The ink on the lease had barely dried when an email from Marco hit my inbox. Subject: Family emergency meeting. Potential investor discussion location. Closed Moretti's dining room. Saturday, Berov 2 p.m. investor. I nearly laughed. They were scrambling. Desperate. Probably expecting some angel investor to swoop in and restore the family name. I leaned back in my chair, slid open the drawer, and pulled out the lease. Verdura would open its first brick-and-mortar location exactly where Moretti's once stood. Same address. New era. And they were about to find out. At a family meeting they thought they controlled. They didn't even know they were meeting the owner. I was done playing small. Done hiding behind the truck. The quiet success. The polite silence. They wanted a meeting? Good. I had a presentation. Franchise numbers. Market growth. Award features. Customer data. Everything they laughed at for a decade. And when I walked into that old dining room, they wouldn't see the baby sister with rabbit food. They'd see the woman who bought their legacy right out from under them, without their permission, without their help, and without their blessing. They were expecting a lifeline. I was bringing a mirror, one that showed them exactly who they were, and exactly who I'd become. This wasn't revenge. This was revelation. And I was going to make sure it landed. The place looked hollow without the tablecloths. No music, no clatter of silverware. Just bare walls and ghosted outlines where family portraits once hung. The dining room of Moretti's Ristorante, our supposed legacy, was now nothing but echo. My siblings were already seated when I walked in. Marco stood up immediately, confused. Clara? What are you doing here? I didn't answer. Just placed a black folder on the table and opened it to the first page. Verdura LLC, leaseholder agreement. There was a beat of silence. Then Olivia scoffed. This is a joke, right? You're not the investor. You can't be. I met her eyes. No joke, no investor. Just the new tenant. You bought this place? Marco's voice cracked. I nodded. Through my holding company. Quietly, legally, completely. They were unraveling in real time. You're turning it into a food truck stop? My sister-in-law sneered, as if the very idea burned her throat. I shook my head. No trucks. This is Verdura's first brick-and-mortar location. A plant-based Italian kitchen. Simple, honest, mine. This was supposed to be our second chance, Marco said, slamming his hand on the table. You knew that. And you blindsided us? No, I said quietly. I gave you 10 years to see me. You never did. Olivia folded her arms. You've been waiting for this, to rub it in. No, I said. I've been working for this. You just happened to be in the way. That shut her up. Everyone started talking at once. Accusations, deflections, what-ifs. But one person hadn't said a word. My father sat at the far end of the table, arms crossed, jaw clenched. I looked at him. Dad, you used to say this building was sacred, that it carried the family name. He didn't move. Well, you were right. It does carry a name. Mine. Slowly he stood up, walked to the door, paused, one hand on the frame. You better make something good in here, he said without turning, around. Then he left. The others followed, some in silence, some muttering things I didn't bother to absorb. I stayed behind, ran my fingers over the grain of the old table. The same one where they used to brush off my ideas like crumbs. This wasn't a takeover. It was a resurrection, not of their vision, but of mine. Verdura would rise here. And the ashes? They could keep those. The next day I invited them back. Same dining room. But this time, I was ready. They walked in slower. Less confident, more cautious. I didn't greet them with champagne or apologies, just a neat stack of packets, waiting at each seat. Marco flipped his open first. Inside, every email I'd sent, over the years suggesting collaboration, joint ventures, pop-ups, menu modernization, all ignored or left unread. Then came the charts, Verdura's market growth, ROI projections, franchise interest, numbers that would have made them rich if they hadn't laughed me out of the kitchen. Last page, a snapshot of Verdura's current valuation. Marco's face paled. Olivia's hands trembled as she flipped to the final sheet, and then I dropped. The real bomb. I reached into my bag and pulled out a framed article, slid it into the center of the table like a trophy. The headline read, "From Food Truck to Franchise, Verdura's 10-year plant-based triumph." Right beneath it was a quote from me. Sometimes success grows best in the shadows, especially when everyone's too busy looking in the wrong direction. They stared at it like it had teeth. "I didn't come here to gloat," I said. "I came to close the loop." Silence. Then my father, who had barely acknowledged my existence the day before, finally looked up. "I was wrong," he said, voice gravelly. "You didn't break from the family. You built a new one." For a second, I almost believed he meant it. I nodded. Not for him, but for me. "I've decided to keep one thing from the old menu," I said, pulling out a page from Verdura's draft menu. "Nonna's stuffed shells," Olivia blinked. "Seriously?" "Veganized, cashew ricotta, lentil bolognese. But the shape, the flavor, the comfort, that stays." Because here's the truth. I didn't hate where I came from. I just refused to let it trap me. My family didn't understand that legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you build. I watched them process it all. The missed chances. The silent empire they never saw coming. I wasn't the failure anymore. I was the one who made it. Without them. Beyond them. And now? I was offering them a taste of what they could have had, if they'd only taken one bite when it mattered. Opening day arrived. I stood outside the new Verdura location as a line snaked around the block. Every customer was a victory, proof that my quiet hustle had paid off. Inside, a photo wall showcased my journey. Snapshots of the old truck, faded, receipts, and the early days of my dream. Each image was a testament to the grit I carried when no one else believed in me. As I prepared for the grand opening, I heard a soft knock at the door. It was my mother. She didn't speak a word. She simply handed me a small note. I unfolded it and read, "Your nonna would be proud." In that moment, my heart softened. There was no grand apology or celebration of old grudges, just a silent acknowledgement that I had finally made it on my own terms. I accepted the note as both a peace offering and a benediction, a reminder that sometimes success mends what was once broken. Later, I walked the kitchen floor in my crisp chef's whites, feeling every inch of confidence and calm I'd fought so hard to achieve. I reached for a single basil leaf resting on the counter, a subtle nod to the family recipes that once defined us. I brought it close, inhaled its fresh scent, and smiled. This time, the recipe was mine. I wasn't just cooking. I was rewriting our legacy. One plate, one dream at a time.